You held my heart in a way that made me feel safe, not scared. When you saw my mess and loved it, I knew love wasn't just a word. You didn't judge my chaos, you understood it. Your kindness towards me was more than I ever thought I deserved. You didn't just hear me, you felt my pain in the depths of your soul. You saw the broken parts of me and decided they were worth fixing. When you stayed silent, I knew it was because you were listening with your heart. The way you held my brokenness as though it was a treasure made me fall for you. You loved me in places no one else could reach. When I was lost, you were the quiet compass that guided me home. You didn't try to save me, you just let me be, and that's when I healed. The way you cared for my fears, not just my needs, stole my heart. You loved me at my darkest, and that's when I became yours. The first time you held my hand, it felt like a promise, not just a touch. You saw all the cracks and loved me because of them, not despite them. You didn't ask for explanations. You just held space for my truth. Your presence made me feel more alive than I ever felt before. When you stood by me in silence, I knew your soul was speaking louder than words. You didn't make me feel like I had to be anything but myself. The moment you kissed me without hesitation, I knew I was home. You listened to the fears I hadn't shared yet, and that's when I fell. You saw my imperfections and made them beautiful. You held my heart in a way that made me believe it was worthy of love. You understood the pain I couldn't articulate, and that's when I knew you loved me. I didn't fall for your strength. I fell for how you softened my edges. The way you accepted my past made me believe I could have a future with you. You didn't try to fix me, you just loved me through my cracks. You didn't demand my time. You made every moment with you can feel timeless. You fell for the broken pieces of me that I never showed anyone else. I fell for you the moment you trusted me with your vulnerability. You didn't need to explain why you stayed. It was the way you stayed that mattered. When you picked me up, I didn't feel fragile. I felt like I could fly. You didn't just stay for the good moments. You stayed when life wasn't pretty. The way you saw me at my worst and loved me anyway, that's when I fell. You didn't rush my healing. You loved me as I was, broken and all. You weren't afraid of my storms. You walked through them with me. When you whispered my name like it was the most precious thing, I knew you were mine. I didn't know love until you showed me how to love myself. The way you held me without needing anything in return made me believe love was pure. You didn't ask me to change. You loved me in the space where I was. When you looked into my eyes, I saw my entire soul reflected back to me. I fell in love with how you saw me as I truly am, not the image I showed. Your actions made me realize love wasn't about perfection. It was about acceptance. You didn't need to fix me, you just needed to love me. And that's when I fell. Your love was like rain, soft, constant, and life-giving. I fell when you saw my shadows and kissed them into the light. You didn't need to speak. The way you held me said everything I needed to hear. You didn't look at my scars and pity me. You kissed them and made them beautiful. The way you loved me without asking for anything in return was everything I never knew I needed. I didn't fall for your words. I fell for your actions that spoke louder than any promises. When you saw me at my most vulnerable, you didn't turn away. You held me closer. You saw the hurt in me and nurtured it with kindness. I fell for you when you made my pain feel less heavy. The way you never gave up on me made me believe love could never fail. You didn't look at my flaws and try to fix them. You loved them as part of me. You didn't rush through my healing. You gave me the time I needed. You saw my silence and treated it like a prayer. I didn't fall for you because you were perfect. I fell for you because you accepted my imperfections. You didn't promise me forever. You just showed me that today was enough. You loved me through moments where even I couldn't love myself. When you reached for me during my hardest days, that's when I knew you were the one. Your touch was the gentle reminder that love doesn't need to be loud to be real. You didn't just kiss me, you kissed my soul back into existence. You never asked for me to explain. I could just be, and that was enough. You made me feel like love was the most natural thing in the world. You didn't turn away from my flaws. You embraced them as part of who I am. I didn't fall for your words. I fell when you showed me what love truly meant. You loved me in the way I always needed, without ever knowing I was longing for it. When you let me fall apart and held me together, I knew love had no boundaries. My dear, the way you looked at me while I broke, that's when I loved you forever. I didn't fall in love with your smile. I fell in love with how you stayed during my storm. The moment you chose my silence over my words, I knew you were home. I fell for you when you didn't flinch at my darkness. You reached for me, not to save me, but to sit in the fire with me. You saw my shame and didn't turn away. That's when love became undeniable. When you defended me behind my back, I knew I'd never love another. You didn't just touch my hand, you held my fear. I collapsed, and you kneeled beside me. That was the most romantic thing I've ever seen. I loved you the moment your silence became safer than their loud love. You didn't run when I confessed my past. You stayed and kissed the ruins. I watched you protect my name like it was sacred. That moment never left me. I loved you the second you chose my scars over her beauty. I broke, and you picked up pieces I didn't even know were missing. When you heard my pain without me speaking, I knew your soul already knew mine. You held my secrets like prayers. You sat beside me when everyone else was standing above me. When you whispered, "I see you," instead of, "I love you," I finally felt loved. I watched you wipe tears I hadn't cried yet. That's when I surrendered. You didn't try to fix me, you just didn't leave. When I trembled, you didn't flinch. You wrapped your calm around me. That night, when you stayed silent instead of judging, I saw God in you. You didn't ask why I was distant. You just moved closer. You made chaos feel like music. I didn't fall for your beauty. I fell when you carried my guilt like it was yours. You didn't romanticize my brokenness. You respected it. That look in your eyes when I was ashamed, that's when love rooted. You didn't react. You understood. You sat with me in silence like it was a conversation. I was falling apart, and you asked how to hold the pieces. You made my wounds feel witnessed, not pitied. When I confessed everything, I saw your heart open, not close. You didn't flinch at the monster in me. Your arms didn't just hold me, they held back my collapse. You stayed through the part where most people leave. I saw you cry when I couldn't. That's when I knew. You stood between me and my demons. When I couldn't love myself, you didn't stop loving me. Your silence screamed loyalty when I expected betrayal. You saw the unspoken and chose to stay. That time you said nothing, but listened with your entire body. I loved you completely. I realized I loved you when your patience felt louder than anyone else's praise. You didn't walk away when I was unlovable. You told me I wasn't too much, just too sacred. You looked at me like I was more than my mistakes. When I pushed, you didn't pull. You paused. You forgave before I asked. I felt your love when you didn't speak it, but showed it anyway. You gave me safety when I only knew survival. You touched me like I wasn't fragile, but divine. Your silence never felt empty. It felt like presence. You held me like you'd met me before, in another life, in another heartbreak. You stood with me when I had nothing to offer. You didn't love the best version of me. You loved the raw one. I didn't fall for your words. I fell when you acted like my soul mattered. You didn't ask me to smile. You held my frown. You wrapped around my pain like it was poetry. You never asked for more. You just loved what was left. You saw through me and stayed anyway. That moment when you cried for me, I broke and rebuilt in your hands. You weren't afraid of my silence. You stood up for me in rooms I wasn't in. You didn't shame me, you sanctified me. You stayed after seeing the things I tried to hide. I watched you protect my dignity without needing credit. You didn't rush my healing. You waited when I had no words. That night, you stayed up just to hear me breathe. I knew. You didn't take advantage of my softness. You saw me unravel and called it art. You were gentle with the parts that hurt to touch. You let me be quiet without assuming the worst. When I hid, you searched, but never pushed. You didn't say, "I'm here," once. You proved it 100 times. You chose me during the ugliest moment of my life. You touched my soul before my skin. You listened without waiting to speak. You gave me peace when I expected punishment. You never left, even when I would've. If this touched your soul, don't scroll, like, comment your favorite quote, and subscribe for more. You didn't correct my pain, you respected it. You stayed when staying felt inconvenient. You didn't just love me, you made love feel sacred again. You didn't make me earn your loyalty. You responded to my chaos with calm. You held my anger like it was grief. You kissed the version of me I hated most. You never turned my scars into stories. You saw all the parts and loved the whole. You stayed when I had no energy left to give.